we're gonna get a set of Daedric armor in every Elder Scrolls game. Daggerfall, Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. I'm counting all dozen versions of Skyrim as one game. What about Arena? It doesn't have Daedric armor. What about Blades? What about Blades? Let's start with Oblivion. Daedric and Cyrodiil comes as random drops from high-level enemies after you yourself hit level 20. Enemies scale with your level, so you need to be a high level for them to be a high level. Oblivion leveling is simple. Get 10 skill ups across your major skills, go to sleep, and wake up to an attribute allocation screen. Congratulations, you've ascended to level 2. The problem with Oblivion's leveling is that it's most optimal to take major skills you're less likely to use. That way you can control exactly when you'll level up, and you can optimize how many attribute points you gain per level, ideally getting 5 in 3 different attributes. You can read on it if you're really interested in how the min-maxing works, but for this, I don't really care. I just want to level up as fast as possible, so I'm taking skills that level up super fast as majors. Alchemy, Illusion, Conjuration, Heavy Armor, and Sneak. All pretty quick. Blade and Destruction, not so much, but I still need to kill stuff, so those might be nice to have. To level magic skills easily, we need to spell make some really weak versions of spells from those schools. The power of a spell doesn't affect how much experience you gain from casting it, so low magicka cost spells are ideal. There's a spellmaking altar in the Arcane University, but we'd have to do a bunch of Mages Guild recommendation quests to gain access to it. Instead, we'll take advantage of the Player House DLC that comes with the Game of the Year edition. For about 3,000 gold, we can buy special candles from the Mystic Emporium and set up a spellmaking altar of our very own at Frostcrag Spire. The best way to make gold that I can think of, besides ransacking the Mages Guild shelves and selling their alchemy stuff back to them, is via alchemy itself. Fatigue potions are super easy to make, just about any and all food items can be combined to make them, and there are 2 farms loaded with produce we can steal, harvest. The vineyard outside of Skingrad and the abandoned farm northeast of Kvatch. The Shetcombe farm. Carrots, corn, leeks, pumpkins, potatoes. Not only will these potions sell for a decent price, but leveling alchemy will also bring us closer to our target character level, and it provides intelligence attribute points. As I said, I don't want to min-max, but I think maxing out our intelligence, at the very least, might be worthwhile. What makes alchemy so easy to level is if you wait about 3 days, you can return to these farms and reharvest all the crops to make another several dozen potions. It's not exciting, but it's easy. As soon as I could afford them, I bought the Mage Tallow candles, set up my altar, and got to crafting some spells. To train Conjuration, a spell that summons a skelly for 1 second, only costs a single magicka. For Mysticism, 1 second of Detect Life. It's not a major skill, but it's a super fast skill to level, and I can use that to max out my intelligence gains. Illusion, 1 second of light. I also made a Restoration training spell just in case. Finally, to get the best prices, I grabbed the Void Seed power from the Apprentice Doomstone to give me access to a Fortify skill option in the spellmaking menu. With that, I created a spell that both fortifies my Mercantile by 100 points for 1 second, and charms my target for 100 points for 1 second. Because the world freezes in dialogue menus, I won't lose the effects of the spell until 1 second passes outside of the menus. A bit cheesy, yes, but hey, it's Oblivion. The last purchase we'll make, after doing a bit more crop harvesting and alchemy, is the cattle cell for the Deepscorn Hollow player home. We're actually going to want to buy all the upgrades for this place eventually, but the cattle cell is a good start. What this upgrade does is add an NPC to the Hollow that is always asleep, meaning we can't fail sneak checks against them. By sneaking into a wall, we'll constantly be gaining experience in sneak. We can even cast spells while doing this for more levels. Much like a cooking show, we'll let that bake while we work on something else. Daggerfall. It requires a bit of grinding too. I'm sure more than 95% of you have never played Daggerfall, and technically, I haven't either since I'm playing Daggerfall Unity instead, but the spirit's the same, and I'm not playing the original Daggerfall because To keep things brief, leveling in Daggerfall is both simpler and more complicated than Oblivion. Simpler because the amount of attributes you get upon level up is random, 4, 5, or 6, and you can place them in any attribute you want. More complicated because look at this. You have primary skills, major skills, and minor skills. Your level is determined by the sum of your 3 primaries, your 2 highest majors, and your 1 highest minor. There's a formula on UESP, and there's stuff to do with subtracting the starting level, and it doesn't matter. Just, if you want to level up fast, you pick skills that level up fast. It's actually really simple when you put it that way. Running and jumping are easy to level, and blunt weapon is just good to have because starting without a weapon skill might be rough. Majors are magic schools, mysticism, alteration, and restoration. Magic is actually pretty easy to level in Daggerfall, so those will shoot up super fast. Minor skills matter the least, but I feel like critical strike, stealth, and medical will be the most useful. Now that bar on the right, the skill advancement slider, yeah, that's okay. You can give your character special advantages and disadvantages. Advantages like 3 times your into spell points, not magicka, it wasn't called magicka, it was spell points, or expertise in a weapon type. Disadvantages like weakness to disease or forbidden materials like steel. Different advantages and disadvantages move that bar up and down based on how helpful or harmful they are. To maximize our XP gains, we want that little sword marker to be as low as possible without going in the red. It means we'll level faster. We could also raise or lower the maximum amount of hit points we receive per level. This would also affect how fast we advance our skills, but 8 is fine. You can then redistribute your attribute spread. I took a bunch of points from personality and gave it to strength, int, and speed. Then you roll more dice to allocate more attribute points. Same idea. Strength, int, speed. And you add some points to your skills, 6 for each group. Finally, you can set your reflex level. The higher you set it, the faster you'll level up. So very high it is. Daggerfall is an interesting entry in the Elder Scrolls anthology, not because it has a weird atmosphere like Morrowind, but because it's strangely modern in the oddest of places. For example, spellmaking has no restrictions. You don't have to do any quests to get to it. You just have access to it immediately. Right after you escape Privateer Hold, you can fast travel to the city of Daggerfall, join the Mages Guild, and then talk to the spellmaker and make any spell you want. No need to faff about with the side quests like Oblivion. You don't even have to learn any of the specific spells you want to make like you have to do in Morrowind and Oblivion. You just get the spell from the guy. Actually, a modern game would probably force you to come here and give you a whole tutorial on how this works, and then lock a bunch of the options behind 3 levels of currency conversions to hide the fact that you can buy shit with real money. $70 game, microtransactions, be sure to pre-order and get a dumb in-game hat. Grievances aside, let's make a few spells. Training spells. Like Oblivion, the strength of the spell doesn't affect the experience you get for casting it, so the spells that cost the least amount of magicka, spell points, are the best for training. The gold cost for these is trivial, but if you must know, I got most of my gold by selling the crap I collected in Privateer Hold. You know, looking at this spellmaking interface, maybe a tutorial isn't a terrible idea. Your character's level affects how strong the spell is. As an example, Heal Fatigue will heal between 1 and 1 points of fatigue, plus another 1 to 1 points for every 2 levels we have. So at level 10, if I understand it correctly, it'll heal 1 to 1 points of fatigue, plus another 5 to 5 points. We can change the ranges, but this is a spell for training restoration, so we want it to have the lowest magicka cost. Spell point cost, you know what I mean. Water breathing for alteration, and open for mysticism. Yeah, open is mysticism in Daggerfall, not alteration. We'll also buy some handy adventuring spells before we leave. From the lead singer of Symphony X, Russell Allen, we buy Cure Disease, Cure Poison, a basic healing spell, a fireball spell because why not, and Recall. Recall works a bit differently in Daggerfall as opposed to Morrowind. It acts as both the mark and recall spell. You can only teleport back to your mark a single time. If you forget to place your mark again, you're out of luck. Takes some getting used to. With the training spells in hand, we can finally get to work. By joining the Fighters Guild, we can not only use their training services, but we can freely rest within their building without having to go to an inn. I said that weird. Training services aren't all that great in Daggerfall. You can only train once per 12 hours, and you can't train past level 50. It's a good option for miscellaneous skills, I suppose, just getting them up to speed, but our primary purpose of being here is to spam cast these magic training spells until we have no spell points left, then rest until our spell points are fully replenished. A quirk about Daggerfall's leveling is that your skills don't level up unless you rest for 6 hours. In the other games, you have to sleep for your character to level up, but in Daggerfall, you have to rest for any of your skills to level up, after you train them for a bit. If you never rest or travel, your skills will never increase no matter how hard you train. Look at that, Daggerfall teaching us that to get better at something, you need to make sure you get a good night's sleep. 6 hours probably isn't ideal, but you only need to rest for 6 hours in Daggerfall. But the messaging is nice. It's a good message. Since I'll be spending a bunch of time in the guild jumping around and casting spells, even though buying training isn't that great, I should probably still do it, so I need gold. Gold is pretty simple. Travel to a distant land, Sentinel, let's say, pop into their local bank, take out a loan for 100,000 gold, withdraw about 99,000 gold as a letter of credit, fees, you know how it is, and return to Daggerfall's bank to deposit the letter of credit. Now you have a bunch of gold. Yeah, you're supposed to pay it back plus 10% within a year, but if we stay out of Sentinel, we should be fine. Take a loan, flee the country. Easy peasy. It was at this point I realized I could make a single spell with multiple schools on it to train all 3 schools at once. I assumed you couldn't do that because you can't do that in Morrowind and Oblivion. So, I made a water breathing, fatigue healing, open spell that would train alteration, restoration, and mysticism all at the same time. And instead of resting in the guild, I realized I could just travel across the map to different locations. It's faster than resting, or at least it feels faster than resting, and it replenishes your magicka. If it's not obvious at this point, I'm not super familiar with this game. I may seem like I know what I'm talking about, but that's just the air of authority that a script grants me. Daedric armor starts appearing at around level 8, but it becomes increasingly more common the higher your level. So we'll throw this in the oven as well. Skyrim. You always remember your first. It's kind of weird that this was the first Elder Scrolls game that let you craft your own armor. In Morrowind and Oblivion, you could fix your own armor, that was fine, but making it yourself? Oh, no way. In Skyrim, there are two ways to get your hands on a set of Daedric armor. The obvious way is through smithing. Get your smithing to level 90, get the correct perks, then smith the gear at any forge. This is how we'll be doing it, which is why I'm an orc. They get a head start on smithing with an extra 5 levels. The other way is via the Atronach forge. Throw in a Daedra heart, an ebony ingot, some void salts, a greater or higher soul gem, and a sigil stone, and the forge will pop out a random piece of Daedric armor. You can specify the piece you want by putting in a specific piece of ebony armor, but where do you get ebony armor easily? Yeah, that's right, smithing. Getting the sigil stone, which isn't consumed between each ritual, requires you to do the Master Conjuration quest. Instead of 90 smithing, you need to get 90 conjuration. Magic is a bit more awkward to level in Skyrim since you need to be in combat for a lot of the spells to actually grant experience. Smithing is easier. Of course, the first thing we do is grab the warrior birth sign, increasing the rate at which our warrior line skills level up. One-handed, two-handed, heavy armor, block, archery, and smithing. The second thing is the same thing everyone does, I assume. Tear through the mine just by the standing stones, kill all the bandits within, collect the loot, and sell it to Adrian, Avenici, and Whiterun. I believe there's a dupe glitch you can abuse to make leveling smithing super easy, but I'm not interested in doing that. If I were to do that, I'd just find some gold and gems, dupe them like crazy, and make a ton of expensive jewelry. You see, the experience you get per item made is proportional to its value. Since I'm not doing that, this journey will involve a lot of resource optimization. For instance, Adrian sells iron ingots and iron ore, but I don't have a ton of gold. So instead of making a bunch of iron daggers for the first few dozen smithing levels, instead we'll chop a bunch of firewood, which I've clearly been doing, and use it to make bundles of iron arrows. A dagger is worth 10 septims, and an iron arrow is worth 1 septim. However, you make 24 arrows with a single iron ingot and a single piece of firewood, effectively 2.4 times better than daggers. The only drawback is collecting the firewood. Of course, with enough gold, you could buy all the iron and leather you need directly from Adrian, but we don't have enough gold, so we won't be doing that. There is one glitch I'll be using, actually, but it's so inconsequential that I could just not mention it and you would never know. To be fair, I could use the dupe glitch and edit around it and you would never know. I'm not, but I can't prove it. Oh well. Shops restock every 24 hours, maybe 48, but waiting in Skyrim takes some time and it's boring. I don't really want to do it. So instead, you can buy something from a shop, save the game, attack the merchant, then reload the save. For whatever reason, that repopulates the vendor's shop as if 24 or 48 hours have passed. I don't know why it works, but it does. It just speeds things up. But I'm still limited by the amount of gold I have, so it's time to revert to the classic Skyrim profession, stealing shit. Our primary goal right now is to get 30 smithing. At 30 smithing, we unlock the perk that allows us to smith dwarven armor and weapons. It's the dwarven stuff that'll be our bread and butter.
It's locked for a reason.
You know though, stealing and bartering to become a master smith, it could work, but how's about instead we embrace orcish tradition and raid Whiterun's nearby mine, the Halted Stream Camp. Yes, I'm entering combat as a stealthy archer, the carcinization of Skyrim builds. Everything becomes a stealth archer, but I'm ending combat with a big hammer. Orc smash. There are quite a few iron ore veins throughout this mine, and here's a little secret. You can mine the ore faster by equipping the pickaxes and attacking the ore rather than pressing E and having your guys slowly chip away at it. In fact, if you dual wield pickaxes, the dual power attack strikes the rock 3 times in quick succession, mining an ore from the vein. Every vein has 3 ores, so you can deplete each vein pretty quickly. The mining attracted more bandits. And you'd think they'd be quite a nuisance, but Skyrim's a weird game. And just because all these rocks didn't fall on the bandits, doesn't mean they can't get killed by them. Now I can mine in peace. We could find a transmute spell tome in this mine. It converts iron ore into silver, and then into gold. This increases the value of the ore, ultimately increasing the amount of XP we get per ore, but it only transmutes 1 ore at a time, and that would take way too long, especially with how little magicka I have. So I only transmuted a few iron ores, and turned the rest to nails. Not super optimal, but I only needed a few more levels anyway. Now level 4 with 31 smithing, I can grab the dwarven smithing perk, and move on to the next phase of this journey. We're off to Markarth, but not to pilfer a dwarven metal aplenty. Well, a bit of that, but not in Markarth. Not yet. We're actually going southeast of Markarth to Arkinthams. There's plenty of Dwemer scrap metal throughout this dungeon, and throughout all Dwemer dungeons, but we're coming here to start a quest, Lost to the Ages. I don't think this will actually save time. In fact, it'll probably take more time, but the reward from this quest should reduce the amount of Dwemer metal we need to collect. It's the Ethereal Crown, which lets us have 2 standing stone powers. When we enter the ruins, a ghostly voice tells us to leave, but that's what ghosts say like 90% of the time, so it's just a reflex. There's a dead lady here, and like most corpses, it comes with a name tag, Catria. Oh, and here she is. Nothing ever stays dead for long in Tamriel, huh? Falmer are always brutal. I know Skyrim's got a type of level scaling system, but I always feel like I encounter these bastards way earlier than I'm supposed to. They're fast, they got poisons, they got magic, and they got bug monster pets. Thankfully, Ghost Woman is here to help me, and she's way better at dispatching enemies than I ever could be. Here's another fantastic reason to play Orc. The Berserk power doubles the damage you do and halves the damage you take for 60 seconds. Wonderful for situations like this. Here's where she fell, but her bow stayed up here on some random tree trunk. Where did this come from? Why is this down here? Zephyr, a Dwemer-style bow that fires 30% faster than a standard bow. Better than the Falmer bow in any case. I'll use it. We hit the whirligigs, mess up and fight some of the Dwemer spiders, then hit them in the correct order and pass on through the gate where we find the first of 4 Ethereum shards. We can deduce the locations of the remaining pieces by looking over Catria's journal and interpreting the scribbles on her map. Yeah, let's pretend I did that and didn't just look it up. We collected a bit of Dwemer metal in this dungeon, and smelting it all reduces its weight, so we want to do that before we head out to other locations. Also, better weapons. We can craft Dwemer stuff, so we might as well make a Dwarven Warhammer. Bad kid. Bethardams, a Dwemer ruin northeast of Markarth, is not where we want to go. Instead, we want to travel just a bit further north to a bridge stretched across a tiny waterfall. Deep Folk Crossing. Before the Battle of Red Mountain, when the Deep Folk, the dwarves, had holdings throughout all of Skyrim, every summer, the apprentice crafters, those under the tutelage of masters like Yegrim Bagarn, would make a pilgrimage across this bridge, sojourning to Bethardams, where they would learn a new craft. None of that is true, I made it up. But there is an Ethereum shard here. 2 more to go. Number 3 is in Raldbethar, a ruin you should be familiar with if you've ever completed the Dark Brotherhood questline. This is where you kill Mwiri's former lover. The place is full of bandits, not Falmer, thank Malakath. The Dwemer spheres are a bit of a problem, I'll admit, but it's nothing a bit of Berserker rage can't solve. But rage. Oh, you foolish Dwemer and your sadistic machinations. I'll use your own traps to my advantage. Too close. Oh, phew. I was worried. At least it wasn't Falmer. God damn it. It feels kind of mean leading Falmer into the traps, you know? Dude, can you knock it off? Give it a rest, you... When mages in Skyrim use those elemental fire hose spells with their hand all up in my face, it makes me so irrationally upset, just inconsolably pissed off. I don't know why. Oh, well, there's your problem. They call you in on your day off to fix the simplest of problems, I tell you. Press the button, lower the bridge, and... oh, I don't care that it's cheesy. These guys are tough. Something tells me I didn't actually have to kill this thing. Oh, now Catria shows up. Would have been nice if... whatever. Shard number 3, back to Whiterun. I'm currently over encumbered, so I can only walk. But much like Oblivion, while walking, you can perform a power attack for a little bit of extra mobility. Enough mobility to make getting to the smelter a touch faster. By melting down all this metal, we lose a good 150 bramble plinths of carry weight. The final shard is found south of Mizulft, in the Dwarven storeroom. A room filled with scrap metal and Dwarven ingots. As if they stored the stuff here, like a storeroom. Catria is also here, but the door is locked, so she couldn't get to the final Ethereum shard before we opened the door for her because ghosts can't pass through doors of practice. I don't understand ghosts in Tamriel. The final step of this quest is using the shards to activate the Ethereum Forge. Southwest of Iverstead, beyond a few bandits populating these Dwemer ruins, awaits Catria and this weird Dwemer doohickey, some kind of orrery. We stick the shards into the slot and stand aside while the stone shifts. Or, wait, no, we remove the pieces, but they're now merged with a cogwheel, and then the ground starts shaking. Ah, yes, an elevator, as I suspected.
Clear out the steam so we can take a look.
Wouldn't want to burn your ghost skin. And the world attacks. Bunch of spiders, easy peasy. Okay, spheres, not so easy. As long as I keep my distance, I should be able to heal and whoa! What a natural way for a corpse to fall. And finally he arrives, the Forge Master. What the, how much health does he have? Am I even hitting him? Oh, I wasn't. That was weird. I'm sorry, did Catria just thoom him? Did Ghost Lady breathe fire? If you go to the Dream Sleeve when you die, and Dagothar is dreaming in the Dream Sleeve to come back to this world, what the hell is Catria? Enough games. It's Berserkin time. You thought it was a fake out. You thought I was gonna die, didn't you? The materials to craft the ethereal crown are available in this chest right over here. How convenient. Oh, and I got a smithing level 2. With the crown, we can run over to the Lover Standing Stone outside of Markarth, swap out our Warrior sign for the Lover sign, and if you notice in the top left, both the Lover and Warrior powers have been added. Both buffs, both XP boosts, 25% faster skill ups, probably not worth the effort. Let's check back in on Daggerfall and Oblivion. Still cooking. It's a good idea to rotate your pans halfway through cooking because... I don't know why. I just know that's what they say you should do. Baking is as much a science as it is mysticism. Even heating? I don't know. 2 dwarven ingots and 1 iron ingot together make a dwarven bow, valued at 270 septims, giving each dwarven ingot a 135 septim value. You could say that the dwarven ingots actually have a value of 130 because you could get a 10 value thing from an iron ingot, but then you need the leather and yada yada. The dwarven ingots are the limiting reagent, so I'm only counting them. Iron ingots, they're unlimited because you could buy them from Adrian's shop, and money is a non-issue because we could just sell all these bows. You get what I mean. I have nearly 200 ingots to turn into bows, but I won't turn all of them into bows. We can use a single dwarven ingot to upgrade the bows on a whetstone because that makes sense. You sharpen a bow and the arrows it shoots are stronger. You sharpen the string, that's what it is. With my current smithing level, this increases the bow's value by 180 septims, resulting in more experience than I would get by making more bows. And after crafting some orcish weapons, we've got 67 smithing. So close yet so far. In Markarth, if we talk to Cal Selmo, the elf researching the Dwemer, he'll ask us to kill a big old spider and chew on Zell. Not only is there more Dwemer scrap in this dungeon to collect, but once we kill the spider, Cal Selmo will become our friend, and that'll let us take a bunch of stuff in his general vicinity, and he'll give us the key to his Dwemer museum. Technically, Skyrim spiders aren't spiders. They're sulfuges, or sulfugids. Camel spiders. Arachnids, yes. Spiders, no. Camel spiders, or sun spiders, sun scorpions, wind scorpions, they got a bunch of different names. They're harmless. But in the early 2000s, there was a picture that went viral of 2 camel spiders sort of tangled together. And the way the picture was taken messed up the perspective of the spiders, so it made them look enormous. They don't get much bigger than a couple inches. Nimmy's a little bit bigger. Now we have the key to the museum, but that doesn't mean we're free to steal whatever we want. No matter how friendly we are with Cal Selmo, he won't just give us the museum displays. But that ain't gonna stop me. "78 smithing. As our smithing level increases, so too does our bow's sharpening ability. Now, improving the bows doubles their value, which means using 1 dwarven ingot to improve the bow grants the same amount of experience as using 2 ingots to make a new bow. Improving all 60 of these bows should net us a hefty amount of XP. Nearly 86 smithing. Almost there. Gorza Grabegal, the Markarth smith, actually sells some dwarven ingots, so for these last few levels we'll sell a bunch of these bows so we can afford those ingots and then smith them into more bows. Not quite enough. Nearly 90. Nails are good enough. And that's 90. Now, we just gotta collect a few more materials. We'll need some ebony, the mineralized blood of Lorcan. Narzelbur, southeast of Windhelm, is an orc stronghold with an ebony mine, and because we're an orc ourselves, we can enter their camp without needing to prove ourselves to them. We need about 20 ingots, so we'll take as much as we can from this mine. I also want to make an ebony warhammer, so the more ingots, the better. Along with the ebony ingots, every piece of Daedric armor also requires a single Daedra heart, the blood of a Patamaic Aedra merged with the flesh of a Patamaic Daedra. But where do we get those? Enther in the College of Winterhold sells 2 hearts. Allegedly he restocks every couple days, but he didn't. Babette, the 200-year-old child vampire in the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary, will sometimes have 1 or 2, so we gotta join the Brotherhood.
Duties will get an extra beating.
Here, and you could kill for all of the kind. This is the best. I mean,
So you're an alchemist then?
Son of a guaranteed source of Daedra hearts comes from the final part of Pieces of the Past, the Mehrunes Razor questline. Let's speed through this. It's just a bunch of dungeon crawling to find pieces of a dagger. Jorgen's family has been guarding the hilt of the razor for the last 8 generations, but he'll sell us the key to the chest holding it for 300 gold. And he just lets us walk into his house to get it. That's just weird. Just sell me the actual item. Why do you sell me the key to the... whatever. The blade shards are in Cracked Tusk Keep. The pommel is at Dead Crone Rock. A bit tough because there's a bunch of Forsworn here, but there's nothing a giant friggin' hammer can't solve. All these people look like nails. And that's the pommel. Giving Silas the final piece of the razor, he tells us to meet him at the shrine to Mehrunes Dagon, where, shockingly,
Kill Silas.
Dagon betrays Silas and tells us to kill him. Oh no, a task with a reward? How will I ever reconcile this with my murder hobo morals? But Dagon's a dick, so he summons 2 Dremora to kill me. But I'm devoted to my quest, and I crave those hearts they've got hidden away in their chests. That's a couple hearts outside the shrine, and a couple more inside the shrine. There's a lot of loot in here too, including ebony ingots. Time to get to smithing. Armor, boots, gauntlets, helm. Need more ebony. Went back to the orcs. Mines replenish after about a month, so I waited until replenished. I probably could have found a merchant, but this isn't the first inefficient decision I've made. Daedric Warhammer. And there we go. Daedric armor in Skyrim. Any progress in Daggerfall? Oh, looks like we're doing quests. Are we done grinding? Oh, no, I got distracted by something, it seems. How about Oblivion? Ooh, look at those skills. Nearly 100 alchemy, 88 conjuration, 74 sneak, some heavy armor levels too. Got those by tanking rat attacks. There are 4 rats in Arvina Thelis' basement in Anvil, and what makes them unique is that they become unaggressive when you leave the basement, so they don't follow you outside the cell like most enemies would. But they attack super fast, so your armor skill can shoot up like crazy. With the final sneak level, we go to sleep and awaken at level 25. Look at those attributes. Not bad. So why level 25 if Daedric gear appears at level 20? Because everything in Oblivion is scaled, even quest rewards. The level at which you complete a quest determines the strength of the reward. For instance, the armor you get from Savlian Madius after the battle for Castle Kvatch fortifies your endurance and strength by 2 points if you get it between level 1 and 4, 3 points between level 5 and 9, 4 points between level 10 and 14, you get the picture. The scaling stops at level 25, where it hits its maximum potential, 8 points each. Most items do this, some go to 30, but for what we want, the scaling stops at 25. There's a haunted boat in Anvil, and Varule wants us to grab a crystal ball from the hold. The chest you find immediately in the boat contains a random piece of jewelry, and it could be the mundane ring, granting 50% magic resistance and 35% spell reflect. Foolishly, I forgot to save before entering the boat, so I can't re-roll the contents of the chest over and over again. Instead, we got a sorcerer's ring, 25 points of spell absorption, and 25 points of magicka. Not terrible, but not what I want. See, the contents of a chest populate when you enter the cell containing the chest, not when you open the chest. So if I saved before entering the ship, I could have kept reloading until the chest had what I wanted. We should still get that crystal ball though. The reason I want the mundane ring is because with a Breton's natural 50% magic resistance, we're a Breton, I probably should have mentioned that earlier. Wearing the ring would make us totally immune to magic, and this includes elemental magic. It's not like Morrowind where magic damage is distinct from fire, frost, shock, or poison. In Oblivion, 100% magic resistance nullifies magic. By returning the crystal ball, we get a leveled longsword with a drain health enchantment, Red Wave. Not amazing, but it's better than what I'm using currently. Another amazing quest item requires a lot of ogre killing. First, we reunite 2 twins who are separated in their youth. Reynald Germain is a drunk in Coral who keeps being mistaken for someone in Cheydinhal and is driving him mad. When we go to Cheydinhal, we find someone who looks and dresses just like Reynald, his brother Gilbert. After reuniting them, they ask me to find and clear out their family home of Weatherly. The place is infested with ogres who are actually super hard to kill because our character is kinda shit right now. That's what happens when you power level and don't bother getting any good gear, and you neglect weapon skills. It took some time, but after much kiting and many fireballs, the final ogre fell. They're weak to poison, so I should probably look into making a few. Returning to the brothers, they tell me to meet them back at Weatherly, where they reward me with a measly 450 gold. But this isn't what we're here for. Oh no. Going back to Coral and waiting around for a couple days, we're approached by Fathus Ules, perhaps a relative of one of the Hlaalu counselors in Orvestran's pocket during the events of Morrowind. He asks us to fetch a sword that was once in the possession of the Germain brothers' father. Their father was a thief, and the sword was stolen, and Fathus wants it. Not wants it back. It's not his sword. He's part of the Thieves Guild, so it's a whole thing. East of Weatherly is the Redguard Valley Cave. A cave stupid with ogres, and we gotta kill them all. You know, I trained my conjuration super high, not only because it levels fast, but because I thought summons would be useful. Giant Crocodile Man can't even take on a Goblin Warlord. Finally! That took 20 minutes. Genuinely. I have 20 minutes of footage of me dying to that little shit. Writing on the wall, here's what we'll do. Gather more crops from the farms to get 100 alchemy, and with 100 alchemy, I can make potions from single ingredients. That means I could turn 100 grapes and 100 carrots into 200 restore fatigue potions rather than 100. Potions sell for quite a bit, and I can more easily make poisons with alchemy shop ingredients. Damage health, 6 points for 25 seconds. The DPS ain't great, but if a slow burn is what I can get, a slow burn is what I'll use. My sneak level is pretty good. How much damage will this do? Not much. What? Why isn't it? Huh. Is sneak supposed to do that? I don't have chameleon or anything. I guess it is dark in here. Ogres may just be dumb. The chieftain has the honor blade of coral. We have two choices. Return the blade to Fathus Ules for a boring monetary reward, or bring it back to the original owner, Laith Waverick, and get the Escutcheon of Coral, an ebony shield with a 35% reflect damage enchantment on it. This means 35% of the physical damage we take will instead be turned back onto the attacker. I know what you're thinking. If 100% magic resistance is possible, is 100% reflect possible? Yes, but we need to fully upgrade Deepscorn Hollow first, and that'll cost over 10,000 gold. I could do more alchemy, but why not feed two birds with one stone? Dungeons with bandits and chests have a chance to contain the jewelry I'm looking for, and the bandits might drop Daedric equipment, or at the very least, glass and elven equipment that I can sell. The Onyx Cavern Beast of Leyawiin have good reviews. Let's ransack that place. This guy has a Daedric battle axe. Not the armor we're looking for, but at least it confirms that Daedric stuff is indeed spawning. And it's worth quite a bit. Probably more than any merchant can afford, but that's fine. With everything dead and loot secured, we return to Rowley Airdwolf, sell him everything we found, and buy the remaining upgrades for the Hollow. If you're coming from Morrowind, this might not be obvious. In Oblivion, the gold value that you see at the bottom of the trade screen is the max amount of gold the merchant will give you in a single trade. But you can make as many trades as you want. Merchants effectively have infinite gold. With all the upgrades purchased, if we return to the bedroom in Deepscorn Hollow, the Dark Servant, right, he's an upgrade. Yeah, go kill, have fun. Anyway, in Greywind's armoire hangs the Raiment of the Crimson Scar. It fortifies a bunch of attributes and skills, but most importantly, it provides yet another 35% reflect. Oh, also I found a Daedric dagger in the Onyx Cavern. I didn't mention it when I got it because I think there's a better bladed weapon we can get. Here we are in Vindicel, an Ayleid ruin in which we'll find Umbra, the person and the sword. With 70% reflect, it's hardly a fair fight. Umbra's a quest item, so it's weightless, and as long as we don't return to the Shrine of Clavicus Vial to finish his quest, I never have to worry about getting that weight back. It's pretty strong too, and having Soul Trap on strike could be useful. There's a decent jewelry farm up in the northeastern reaches of Cyrodiil at the Temple of the Ancestor Moths. After fighting through these dark tunnels filled with blind katana-wielding priests, we come to the door at the end of one of these tunnels. We save in front of the door so we can reload as many times as we want, because on the other side of this door is a guaranteed roll on the jewelry table. This Ancestor Moth is like the dungeon's final boss, but he's super easy to kill. After we kill him, we check what he drops, and if it's not one of 3 items, we reload the save and try again. We want either the Mundane Ring, the Amulet of Blades, or the Amulet of Axes. We talked about the ring already, but the amulets are what provide the final bit of reflect we need, while also fortifying Blade or Blunt by 25 points each, respectively. The former would be better, but the latter is fine too. The Necklace of Swords! Finally, now we're totally immune to physical damage, except arrows. Those can still hit us. Arrows are weird. Another cave with a lot of potential is the Robber Glen Cave west of the Imperial City. It's full of imps, but also has a ton of loot chests. These chests have a chance to contain the Mundane Ring. Oh, my first piece of Daedric armor, a cuirass. Our journey has truly begun. Maybe I should be farming dungeons with a high chance of Daedric instead of chasing this ring. I mean, the Mundane Ring could drop from those dungeons too. Barren Cave, west of Cheydinhal, a dungeon loaded with vampires. Vampires are pretty strong, but they usually have decent loot. And unlike bandits, they're weak to fire, but they do turn invisible at the start of combat. That's annoying. Whoa, you see what I mean about arrows? A Daedric bow. Not quite what I'm looking for, but I'll take it. Longsword of the Blaze. Fire damage. Good for killing vamps. Unfortunately, I can't rely on the whole save outside the dungeon thing if I get loot I want to keep. Instead, I have to rest for about 72 hours outside the dungeon for everything inside to respawn. Then I can run the circuit again. I will make pilgrimages back to Deepscorn Hollow though to deposit my Daedric loot, so it doesn't weigh me down. Ugh, another Curus. Looks like this guy has Greaves. Yep, nice. God, the mismatch of the gear these NPCs are wearing. It's like leveling in World of Warcraft circa 2007. You dumb matriarch. Another Curus? Seriously? Ah, Daedric shield. Nice. Do shields count as armor? I should take it anyway. Oh shit, the Mundane Ring. I was just running through Robber Glen Caves for giggles and look at that, the Mundane Ring. Cool. Really? Another Curus? Guys, I need helmets and boots. Not Cuirases is this. Oh come on, I feel like Cuirases should be the most rare, right? This one's not wearing boots. Has a Cuirass though. Gauntlets. Awesome, we're nearly there. There's a lot of lockpicking in these caves. The skeleton key would be nice to have, so we'll do Nocturnal's quest real quick. There's a whole process of spying on some Argonians, but you can just get her MacGuffin if you know where it is. Tidewater Cave, west of Deepscorn Hollow. It's full of trolls, but I'm immune to melee damage. We return to Nocturnal, and we're awarded with a lockpick that never breaks, so we can just spam auto attempts to open any chest. A super brief aside, but if I'm honest, this Daedric quest isn't all that interesting. Just to mix things up a bit, I went to Fort Doublecross in southeastern Cyrodiil, a necromancer dungeon, and I found Daedric boots in a random chest. Go figure. All that's left is a helmet.
That is worm.
The helmet! Finally! The last piece I needed for my collection. I kinda wish I collected every piece I found, just so we could have a rough tally of the item distribution. I swear a good 80% of the Daedric I saw was Cuirasses. How's Daggerfall doing? What the hell is he? Oh, training jumping. Level 20. Great. Now what we have to do is find a dungeon with enemies that drop armor. Let me level with you. I had no real idea what I was doing. I was just grabbing quests from a knight's guild in hopes of finding dungeons loaded with vampires. And there were plenty of vampires in those dungeons, but they were too spread out for me to farm. You see, when you leave a dungeon and then re-enter, all the enemies immediately respawn. It might not be the exact same enemy in every spot, but all the hot spots will repopulate. Ideally, we'd find a dungeon with a Daedric dropping enemy right at the start. That way I can run in, kill that one enemy, run out, run back in, kill it again, and just do this over and over until I get a full set of Daedric. And sure, I was finding plenty of Daedric weapons on my quests, good for selling, but I couldn't find any armor. Mostly because I was killing a mix of vampires, Atronachs, and skeleton mages. I can't be certain, but I have a feeling Atronachs and Skellies don't drop Daedric armor. This warrior, however, dropped a Daedric Warhammer, an upgrade to my ebony one. Also, can we take a minute to appreciate how much gold these enemies are starting to drop? Literally, the best way to make gold in this game is by worrying about it later. Level up, and enemies will drop it in piles. I tried farming the stronghold of Buckington. I think I found a map on a body that revealed this location to me, or maybe it was a quest. This place is filled with Dremora. I don't know if Dremora dropped Daedric, it just seems logical that they would, but I didn't actually see them drop any. Also, in this game they're called Daedra Lords, not Dremora, but that's just confusing because you have Daedric Lords and Daedric Princes, so I'm just gonna call them Dremora. So they might not drop Daedric, and they're very dangerous. See, the biggest threat they pose is their fatigue draining spell. If your fatigue hits 0, you collapse onto the ground. If it happens in town, it's not a big deal. You just wake up a bit later and carry on. But if it happens in a dungeon, you basically die instantly. You faint from exhaustion, and then enemies can kill you in your sleep. So these ain't the best enemies to fight. And here's our first piece of Daedric armor, a right pauldron. And of course it doesn't drop from a Dremora, instead it drops from a regular human monk. We're gonna have to find people to kill. I know sometimes when you wait out in the open at night, you can get attacked by humanoids. Thieves, warriors, rogues, monks, those kinds of things. So maybe that's an option. Left pauldron. I may be right. It's people that drop Daedric, not monsters. Okay, so here's what I ended up doing. First, I learned that you can't just go to random dungeons in this game. You need to be told about them, or discover their location on a map that you just so happen to find on a defeated enemy. The only locations on your map by default are temples, towns, and homes. It says dungeon in the little key there, but it only applies to dungeons you've already found, or graveyards with crypts. I thought this was a bit odd, frustrating too. How can I dungeon crawl if my map ain't got no dungeons? Well, in my meandering, I just so happened to find an excellent crypt for some Daedric armor farming. The Copperfield Vaults. You run in, and immediately to your left is a rogue. And if we run out of the crypt and run back in, she'll be back, ready to be crushed into a bloody paste once again. And I already got a pair of Daedric boots. How easy is that? In fact, to speed this up, I can put an anchor outside the crypt, run back in, kill the rogue, check the loot, then recall out of the crypt, and repeat. I do this to avoid the prompt when leaving the dungeon asking if I want to access the inventory of my wagon. This saves a couple seconds per transaction. Now let me level you again. Enemies drop a ton of Daedric equipment. I farmed this rogue for over an hour, and she dropped so much gold and so much Daedric. Mostly weapons, unfortunately, or armor pieces I already had. Or armor pieces I already had, but in a different style. Yeah, Daggerfall has multiple Daedric styles, some with gold trim, some without, plate bodies, chainmail. It's all functionally the same, but it all looks different. Needless to say, I can't scrub through this footage and find each and every instance of new armor. Well, I could, but I don't wanna. Every kill takes less than 20 seconds, and I've got footage of like 200 kills. Let's just say this is a twice-baked cake. Back in the oven it goes. We'll return when I discover something else about Daggerfall.
You were dreaming. What's your name?
Morrowind. Best for last, in my opinion. No grinding whatsoever. All pieces for a full set of Daedric armor are out there in the world, just waiting to be claimed. The catch? They're literally just out there in the world, in the most obscure of places. No hints whatsoever to finding the stuff. You just gotta find it. If you don't already know where they are, you're gonna be hard pressed to just stumble upon them. Like, some of these are in the most ridiculous spots. It's like they didn't want you to find them. Sure, you might find a piece or two while exploring that might just be out in the open, but some other ones are so out of the way, you might think they didn't even exist. In fact, a couple pieces of Daedric weren't even available to get until the expansions unless you killed a Daedric for his. I'm imagining some 12-year-old coming home from school, loading up Morrowind on their Xbox, and trying to find the right pauldron for their Daedric armor, but they just can't because they don't have the Game of the Year version of the game. They just have the vanilla game, and the right pauldron doesn't exist. So then they end up just killing Daedric and taking his armor. Because we don't have to grind to any specific level, we can just get rolling with any character build we want. For this, I think a Red Guard with Longblade as a major skill is our best option. The gear may not drop from enemies, but we will have to do a bit of killing, and Red Guards get an extra 15 points to Longblade, letting us start off with 50 right away. Also, Daedric armor is pretty heavy, so the Adrenaline Rush ability, which fortifies our strength by 50 points for 60 seconds, will boost our carry capacity significantly. We'll take the Steed Sign 2 for 25 extra points to speed. Gotta go fast. I collected stuff around Balmora, sold it for a bit of gold, and bought scrolls for teleporting and various utility spells. Rather than outlining everything I bought and sold once I got to Balmora, we're just going to skip ahead to the first Daedric item. If you follow the Odai River south leaving Balmora and cross the bridge outside the Quama mine, with a keen enough eye, you should spot an entrance to a different kind of mine, an ebony mine within the Vassar Didanak cave. There's some Atranax deeper down, but we don't need to venture any deeper than the entrance. Knowing the location of the mine, we head to the city of Vivec and climb to the top of the St. Olm's Canton, where there's a haunted house. We cast Ondusi's Unhinging on the locked door leading into the basement, where we find one of House Hlalu's counselors, Dram Barrow. By telling him the location of that ebony mine, he offers us a choice of reward. What kind of weapon do we want? Well, a Longblade, of course. And just like that, we have a Daedric katana. Not only is it Daedric, but it's a katana. And it being a katana is a good thing, not because people are weird about katanas, but because the strongest attack option is chop instead of slash, and I like chopping more than slashing. Personal preference. Before we leave Vivec, let's grab one more Daedric item. Not a piece of armor or a weapon, but a Daedric artifact. Within the Foreign Quarters Canal Works, behind a level 65 locked door in a bookstore, is the leader of the Thieves Guild, Gentleman Jim Stacy. I had made a level 65 open spell back in Balmora specifically for this. By climbing through the ranks of the Thieves Guild, when Jim Stacy steps down and makes you Guildmaster, he hands over the Skeleton Key, the highest quality lockpick in the game. I don't know that I'll need it, but it'd be nice to have. It's got 50 uses and never fails. Almost. So why not grab it? Unfortunately for Jim, we have no interest in becoming Guildmaster or even joining the guild. So to get the key...
Yes, sir.
Just business, friend. He dropped a Daedric short sword too. We can sell that. You ain't seen nothing. The first piece of Daedric armor we'll be getting is up in northeastern Vardenfell in the Ashlands west of the Urshalaku Ashlander camp, down in a dungeon just outside Asurnabitashpi, Iberdad.
You will suffer.
Why always with the assassins? I'll take the dart, I guess. The enemies here are in their teens. Their level, I mean. Enemies don't scale in Morrowind the way they do in Oblivion and Skyrim. All your level does is affect what random spawns may appear. A Daedra spawn location, for instance, if it's not a fixed type, will be a scamp at level 1, with a chance of being a Golden Saint around level 15, and a little bit of variety in between. But sometimes Golden Saints are guaranteed to spawn regardless. The game doesn't weaken enemies if you're a low level. Area too hard? Come back later. 2 Jamora, and a Golden Saint. What could they possibly be guarding? Bunch of skulls and daggers, but more importantly, the Daedric Face of Inspiration. Not my preferred Daedric helm, but there's also a Daedric shield and a Daedric battle axe here. The axe will sell for quite a bit. Oh, and a Daedric staff. Wow, this tomb is loaded. Let's be fun with this. The only armor I can equip is Daedric stuff. I don't know. We are over encumbered, however, and there's more Daedric stuff to get in the Ashlands, so we'll drop a mark here, intervention back to the nearby town, and use Adrenaline Rush so we can carry all this crap to the Silt Strider. Cadia Socia has 10,000 gold for us to work with. I'm not too concerned with getting the optimal value for these items, so I'll just sell each one for 10k. Yeah, the battle axe is worth 50k, but whatever, I don't care. We recall back to the Ashlands, get jump scared by this ghost, and make our way back out of Iberdad to pick up our next piece of Daedric. Drskashti, home of the Quara vampires, and their cattle. The cattle aren't aggressive, but the vampires are, and vampires are no joke. They are really fast, but Adrenaline Rush makes dealing with them a cinch. Kjeld is the Quara clan's resident smith, and he's got himself a nice pair of Daedric greaves tucked away in this heavy Dwemer chest, sealed with only a level 20 luck. Oh hey, this vampire looks like me. A feather belt. 20 points of feather for 10 seconds. It reduces the amount of weight we're carrying by 20 bramble plinths. That gives me an idea. We're going to join House Telvanni, and there's a good reason for it. We need to buy a couple books. Chronicles of Nichuleft, Nichunak's Fire and Faith, and Antecedents of Dwemer Lore. We also need 5 helpings of muck and slowed soap, which we can buy from Annis Seleth and Sadrith Mora, not a short walk from the Telvanni Council House. We want to do just enough chores for this great house in order to rise to the rank of mouth. 2 of the counselors' mouths want these alchemical ingredients for their patrons, and once we finish those chores, one sends us off to get the Staff of Silver Dawn, which we buy for 300 gold from Auriel Fiancel in the Sadrith Mora Mages Guild, and the other tasks us with getting the Black Jinx. It's in the possession of a member of the Morag Tongue, conveniently located in Sadrith Mora. We challenge him to a duel, win the duel, and bring the ring and staff back to the council hall. To become a mouth, we need a patron, and Master Aryan is willing to stick his neck out for us if we do him some chores. He wants us to convince Baladis Demnavani to join House Telvanni. He lives in Nissus in the old Velothi Tower, the coziest of Dunmer buildings. One of the mouths also wanted us to ask him 3 questions, so after we do that, we ask him about joining House Telvanni, and he says he'll only join if we do him a favor first. He wants 3 books: The Chronicles of Nichuleft, Nichunak's Fire and Faith, and, that's right, the Lusty Argonian Maid. With Demnavani willing to join House Telvanni, Aryan becomes our patron and we become his mouth. With this rank, we can go to Mistress Thorana in Tel Brenora, and she'll task us with getting her a bow that smells like ash yams. Ash yams have the strongest smell in the Ghost Gate near Rallen Othravel. We gotta kill Rallen Othravel. Normally I'd just taunt an NPC into attacking me, that way I don't accrue a bounty, but I'm rich enough. 1,040 gold to murder a dude? No problem.
You will suffer.
Now you die!
With our fine paid in full, we can loot Rowland's corpse without any ordinators pestering us. It's only illegal if you're poor. We return to Thorana and hand over the bow, and she gives us a Daedric Cuirass and Daedric Greaves. But these aren't just a Daedric Cuirass and Daedric Greaves. No, they come pre-enchanted with 50 points of feather each. Constant effects. The Cuirass and the Greaves weigh more than 50 bramble plinths each, 90 and 54 respectively, but knocking their weight down by 100 is not insignificant. And we can get rid of these other Greaves we got in Drskashti. We didn't have to go there. So I guess there are 3 available Cuirasses and Greaves in the game. You can get them from this quest, find them in the world, or get them from killing Devaith Fear. Still pretty rare. Actually 4 Greaves, because you can also find them on the Dren Plantation. It's a lot of Greaves. I know we already have a Daedric helmet, but I don't really like this one. There are 3 different kinds of Daedric helmets, and we're gonna get the one I like the most. The Daedric ruins east of Sadrith Mora, Anud Nabia, are blocked off, and the only way to get into them is through a hidden back entrance. In the Omiran Ancestral Tomb, not far from the ruins, is a knocked over wall leading into a winding system of tunnels that opens up to reveal portions of a Daedric shrine. And the door here leads to the Forgotten Vaults of Anud Nabia, the Forge of Hilbungard. There's a guaranteed scroll of Windwalker right here, that might come in handy later, and further ahead is a Frost Atronach guarding yet another door. We kill the Atronach, pick the lock on the door, and enter the Forge of Hilbungard. We could find Skullcrusher in here actually, but who cares about that? Instead, on one of the balconies overlooking the forge sits the Daedric Helm of Terror. We'll just Indiana Jones this, and no one will ever know. The helms are identical in stats, but the Helm of Terror has a cool samurai aesthetic that matches my Daedric katana. At least I think it does, it kinda has that vibe. It also apparently represents the more terrifying aspects of Indral Nerevar, and I just think that's neat. Let's get ready to hunt more vampires. They're strong enemies, so of course it makes sense to hide Daedric gear behind them. This time we're visiting the Burn clan's hideout, Galum Deus, which now occurs to me that it's a Dwemer ruin with a not very Dwemer name. Galum Deus does not sound Dwemer. Bethung-Thumbs, Arkingthan, Nichuleft, Bamzam Shend, Galum Deus? I'm pretty sure that's a dinosaur. What's that? Gallimimus? Oh, that a statue? How have I never... Oh, no, it's an observatory. Never mind. I don't know what it is about archers, but they are just brutal in this game. Whoa, these vampires have a friggin' robot. In the room with the leader of the Burn clan, Raxelburn, which is the most Mad Max-ass name I've ever heard, if you levitate to the catwalk up top, you'll find yourself a Daedric shield. Not what we came here for, but this is another option if you're interested. Unlike the armor, shields and weapons tend to pop up more frequently. What we're actually looking for is in a different part of Galamdaeus, placed unceremoniously on a shelf. Daedric boots. The next piece we're getting, 2 pieces actually, are in a location you go to during the main quest. They're probably the most obvious pieces of Daedric equipment in the whole game. They do blend into the surroundings a bit, so you may have missed them. The Dunmer Stronghold, and now 6th house base, Coggeron, is full of Dagothar's minions. Dreamers, Squid Faces, Noodle Snoots, Ash Slaves, Atronachs, a whole slew of nasties. And we have to fight our way down to the sewers running beneath the stronghold, which connect to yet another snaking cave system full of body horror. Normally you'd come here for the Shadow Shield at the behest of Sulmatul Ashcan of the Urshalago Ashlanders, but today we're skipping the shield and going straight for the Daedric gloves, both left and right, sitting more ceremoniously at this shrine. Before we leave these caves, we can kill the Ash Vampire at the end, the boss of this dungeon. I have a Soul Trap scroll, and I had bought a few Grand Soul Gems when we were back in Mournhold. Ash Vampire souls aren't the biggest in the game, but for what I'm planning, it's big enough. We want to enchant our sword, because the penultimate piece of Daedric armor will have us fighting some pretty tough enemies. Goblins. No, really. We'll use the soul to make a simple Absorb Fatigue enchantment. On strike, our katana will absorb between 20 and 40 points of the enemy's fatigue. We could make the enchantment stronger, absorb more fatigue, or make it last longer, but I want this enchantment to have a lot of uses. This will afford us 37 attacks before it runs out of charge. Fatigue affects your success chance for everything in Morrowind. With no fatigue, your accuracy, for instance, is reduced by 25%. With full fatigue, it's boosted by 25%. This enchantment should help keep us topped up. Unlike the other pieces of armor, this one actually requires us to do some quests. The first few parts of the Tribunal expansion's main quest, that is. Just up until the part when the center of Mournhold cracks open and pours a bunch of robot animals into the city. Phaedrus Hlur, one of Almalexia's cronies, sends us to kill 2 Goblin War Chiefs down in the sewers. He'd give us a better reward if we kill their Altmer trainers too, but that's optional. The Goblins are damn strong. This was Morrowind's first expansion, so they expected most players to be a decently high level already, having already gotten a bunch of powerful gear and finished several guild and faction questlines. Naturally, the sewers are filled with god-rending goblins. They're around level 30 and carry weapons comparable to their Daedric counterparts. At least they don't have that much health. While we charge through this gauntlet, let's see how Daggerfall is doing. Ooh, changed up the strategy a bit, huh? Resting outside to heal sometimes spawns baddies. Intentionally taking extra damage during the fights will ensure we have to wait a few hours to heal, and that increases our odds of being attacked. Why not just wait normally? Because you gotta type in the number of hours each time. Clicking until fully healed is easier. Oh, right, the cooking analogy. Has the Morrowind bread dough finished proofing? Ah, excellent. You can't make sourdough without killing a few goblins first. Next, Phaedrus sends us to Gavestrin, who says the Shrine of the Dead, under the city, needs to be cleansed. Ervil Dulny is the priest who can do it, so we gotta escort him there. Oh no, he's met an unfortunate end. I guess I won't get the blessed spear from Gavis. Oh shucks. Phaedrus doesn't care though. He wants us to fetch the Maze Band of Barrelzar, a request from Almalexia herself. And where is that band? Under the city. Rather than crawling through the sewers, we crawl through the crypts connected to the sewers. See, it's different. We got lightning skeletons down here. Why a skeleton needs to wear robes is anyone's guess. They're a bit dangerous if you can't split them up, but they're basically glass cannons. Barrelzar's mazed band is held by Barrelzar the Lich, and his magic doesn't do damage, but it does cause blindness and paralysis, giving him an easy opening for a follow-up attack with his giant friggin' claymore. Just avoid the spell and he's not too dangerous. His Daedric claymore is a long blade though, and we'd be pretty accurate with it, but I like this sword and board thing we're rocking, so we're gonna stick with that. He can keep the sword, we'll take the ring. Giving the ring to Almalexia, then waiting 24 hours triggers the next part of the Tribunal main quest. Mournhold cracking open and a bunch of robot animals spilling out into the city center. In the hole is a long-forgotten Dwemer construction, Bam Zam Shend. Probably should have led the expansion with this, but what's done is done. We evade the mechanical fracas, venture further into the ruins, grab a lone key off this desk, and use it to open this level 100 locked door. We loot the Dwemer satchel charges from this chest, the Dwemer having C4 shouldn't be all that surprising to you, and use one of the charges to blow up this pile of rubble, leaving a hole we can crawl through, and then use the other satchel charge to blow up this pile of rubble. Oh look, more moist caves. But this one is connected to a Daedric ruin. How intriguing. Normally we'd have to come here to get Pyroil Tar from Jamora Lord Kashti Drur and take it to the ghost of Radek Stungenthums to imbue True Flame with True Flames in order to kill Sothasil in his Clockwork City. Today we'll ignore Cash and instead levitate up to the top of his citadel where we find a door to the Wailing Delve. Took long enough, but this is where we'll find our next piece of Daedric armor. The Daedric left pauldrons were dropped down here who knows how long ago, and now they're ours. Prior to the release of Tribunal, the only way to get a left pauldron was to kill Devaith Fear. You can also find a Daedric Cuirass here, but we already have that. One piece remains, but this loaf of Morrowind bread needs to be baked. The Daggerfall casserole is almost done, or something. Let's finish that up. I killed so many people, and they dropped a lot of Daedric equipment of all kinds, so many different weapon types, repeats of the same armor pieces I had, different varieties of the same pieces I had. I set out at first to complete a set of gold-trimmed Daedric. Super snazzy looking. Look at the few pieces I have. The yellow really pops. But I was just having a hell of a time getting the gauntlets. The last piece I needed to technically have full Daedric. It wouldn't be trimmed, but there was a guy offering to trim my armor for free, so I could probably just hit him up. I mean, he's trustworthy. With all the superfluous Daedric, gold quickly became a non-issue. Not only do enemies drop hundreds, if not thousands of raw gold, but they drop Daedric like it's nothing special, because it's not. You can buy it. Yeah, high-quality armor shops, Daggerfall has differing quality shops that buy and sell for different prices. They can sometimes stock Daedric equipment, and their stock refreshes every 24 hours, or maybe it's 48. Either way, it doesn't matter, because the shop stock doesn't populate until you enter the shop. You can save outside the shop, run in, check the shelves, and reload if they don't have what you want. So I used UESP to find high-quality armorsmith shops across this ridiculously huge, if barren, game world, and after discovering that some of the info on these shops might be wrong, probably because this is Daggerfall Unity and not Vanilla, I finally found two shops just across the street from each other. Shufflern's Finest Shielding and Ramoa Wayne's Arsenal in Ramoa Wayne, a city in the Alakir Desert. Here's a Daedric Claymore. I'm on the right track. Jesus Christ, Daggerfall. Can you guess who this game's main demographic was? This shop owner will buy some of my extra Daedric for 88k. He can afford it because merchants don't have a gold limit, and you thought Morrowind had a goofy economy. Here's a tower shield. I think it's a Daedric tower shield, although it doesn't say Daedric. It is expensive, and it is red. What we can do now is wait until nightfall, pick the lock, and steal the shield. Easy. A different Daedric helm. Again, doesn't say Daedric, but it's red, so I'm pretty sure it's Daedric. The armor value is the same as the helm I'm currently wearing, but this full helm feels more armored and it feels cooler. See, the Cuirass says Daedric. Red with 21 armor rating means Daedric. That's what I'm going with. Daedric gauntlets. That's it, that's full Daedric. It's underwhelming. Daggerfall is primordial. The difference between the armors is really just their color. Steel is gray, Dwarven is yellow, Mithril is bluish black, Orcish is green, Daedric is red. Oh damn, maybe I was wrong about the demographic thing. Sheesh. Well, here's the armor. I'm not chasing the trim stuff. I'll just trade it to that guy. I can trust him. Really? No one cares? Okay, casserole's done. The bread is just ready to come out of the oven. Last piece of Daedric armor. The Daedric Right Pauldron. It's on Solstheim. That's right. Not until the second expansion could you get full Daedric without killing Devaith Fear. Remember that scroll of Windwalker we picked up back in Adunabia? 500 points of levitate for 60 seconds. The final piece is on the northern edge of the island inside a crevice atop Castle Karstag. If you never tried getting up here, you'd never notice this opening. Inside is a single Reekling and a single Daedric Pauldron for our right shoulder. Full Daedric. Daggerfall, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim. Best experience? Morrowind. It's like a scavenger hunt. Worst? Daggerfall. It was just tedious. Skyrim was fun, I'd put that at number 2, but that's just because I got to explore a bunch of Dwemer ruins. If I did the duping with the iron daggers or whatever the hell, or transmuted iron, it would have sucked. Oblivion, better than Daggerfall, but honestly the process wasn't all that different. I will say this, in Daggerfall and Oblivion, the Daedric armor shouldn't be a goal. It's just a nice reward you get when you're a higher level. Skyrim, leveling smithing just for Daedric is probably pointless, but the ability to improve high level gear is useful in general, so that grind ain't too bad. Morrowind, a fun adventure. I'm not biased.